You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Results validation is the discipline of confirming whether shipped increments truly improved customer experience and delivered measurable business outcomes. The orientation is that delivery alone is not proof of success. Teams must demonstrate that their work produced durable impact rather than fleeting novelty effects. Without validation, organizations risk celebrating activity instead of outcomes, mistaking feature counts for value. Results validation makes the distinction clear, separating real improvements from noise or short-lived enthusiasm. It provides a structured way to test hypotheses about customer satisfaction, risk reduction, or compliance attainment, using evidence rather than assumption. This discipline closes the loop between intent and impact, ensuring that increments are judged by what they accomplish, not by what was produced. By embedding validation into delivery practices, teams build credibility and protect trust, proving that strategy is advanced by evidence, not by hope or convenience. The purpose of validation is to compare actual outcomes against the hypotheses that justified the work. Each increment is an experiment in value delivery, and its success must be confirmed by observing whether intended improvements occurred. For example, if the hypothesis was that simplifying checkout would reduce cart abandonment by 10%, results validation examines data to see if abandonment rates fell. Validation also confirms whether compliance objectives were achieved or risks reduced, such as passing audits or lowering incident rates. By explicitly asking, "Did this work do what we expected?" validation creates accountability. It turns delivery into a cycle of hypothesis, action, and evidence. Without this discipline, organizations can drift into unchecked optimism, where every release is declared a win, regardless of outcomes. With validation, only increments that move the intended needles are considered successful, ensuring honesty in alignment. Customer satisfaction measures provide direct insight into how users perceive their experience. Common instruments include customer satisfaction (CSAT) surveys, which ask users to rate their experience; customer effort score (CES), which measures how easy it was to complete a task; and net promoter score (NPS), which gauges likelihood to recommend. Each offers a perspective on experience, but none should be taken in isolation. For example, a high NPS score may not align with CSAT if users enjoy the product overall but are frustrated with a specific feature. These measures are strengthened when paired with behavioral data, such as adoption and usage depth, to show whether satisfaction translates into engagement. Satisfaction metrics provide context that telemetry cannot capture alone, revealing subjective perceptions that influence loyalty and retention. Interpreted carefully, they validate whether increments improved experience in ways users recognize and value. Behavioral outcomes track what users actually do, complementing what they say in surveys. Adoption rates indicate whether new features are being tried, while engagement depth shows whether usage is sustained. Task success measures confirm whether users complete intended workflows more efficiently, and retention or churn data reveal whether benefits were durable. For example, a new self-service support tool may show high adoption in the first week, but if churn increases because users find it confusing, the outcome is negative. Behavioral outcomes provide grounded evidence of whether increments created the intended benefits. They also highlight where satisfaction and behavior diverge, such as when users express enthusiasm but fail to engage. Tracking behavioral outcomes ensures that validation reflects real-world use rather than sentiment alone, making success measurable in observable patterns of activity. Reliability and quality signals connect operational performance to user experience. Metrics such as mean time to detect (MTTD), mean time to restore (MTTR), error rates, and defect density provide objective evidence of how reliably systems perform. For instance, even if a new feature is functionally correct, frequent outages or slow recovery erode value. Reliability metrics make these issues visible, linking operability to customer trust. Improvements in MTTD or MTTR can confirm that increments not only delivered functionality, but also strengthened system resilience. Conversely, if defect density rises, validation shows that value was undermined by quality issues. Including these signals ensures that results validation accounts for the lived experience of stability and safety. Reliability is often invisible when strong but painfully obvious when weak, making it an essential dimension of impact validation. Business impact indicators confirm whether increments advanced organizational goals beyond user-level experience. These include revenue growth, improved margins, cost avoidance, and evidence of reduced risk exposure. Compliance attainment, such as passing audits or securing certifications, also represents tangible business impact. For example, a streamlined claims process may reduce manual labor costs, improving margins, while increasing customer satisfaction. Risk posture improvements, like fewer security incidents, protect brand and financial stability. By explicitly measuring these outcomes, organizations connect product work to broader objectives, making success strategic rather than tactical. Business impact validation also strengthens prioritization, as leaders can see which increments generate the strongest returns. This clarity ensures that validation informs future investment decisions, aligning delivery with enterprise outcomes rather than local gains alone. Attribution approaches are critical for separating the increment's effect from external influences. External campaigns, seasonality, or competitor actions can distort results if not accounted for. Techniques such as control groups, cohort comparisons, and interrupted time series analysis provide counterfactuals to isolate impact. For example, comparing engagement in regions where a feature was rolled out versus where it was not clarifies whether observed changes stem from the increment. Interrupted time series can reveal whether a shift coincided with the release or was part of a broader trend. Attribution prevents overclaiming success and preserves credibility. Without it, organizations risk celebrating improvements that would have happened anyway. By applying attribution rigor, results validation ensures that increments are credited accurately, strengthening both trust and learning. Segmentation and cohort analysis add depth to validation by showing where value is concentrated or lacking. Increments rarely affect all users equally. Some groups may benefit significantly while others lag. For instance, a new mobile interface might increase satisfaction for younger users but frustrate older ones. By analyzing results across user types, regions, devices, or subscription plans, teams uncover these nuances. Cohort analysis tracks groups over time, revealing whether benefits persist or fade. This approach prevents averages from hiding disparities, ensuring that validation reflects the full spectrum of experience. Segmentation also informs prioritization, helping teams target follow-up improvements to underperforming groups. By disaggregating results, organizations avoid false conclusions and ensure that value delivery is equitable and strategic. Voice of the customer channels enrich validation by adding qualitative depth to quantitative signals. Interviews, surveys, support themes, and sentiment analysis capture perspectives that telemetry cannot. For example, metrics may show adoption of a new feature, but interviews might reveal that users adopted it reluctantly due to lack of alternatives. Support ticket themes may highlight recurring frustrations not visible in dashboards. Voice of the customer evidence contextualizes metrics, explaining the why behind behavior. It also provides empathy, reminding teams that behind every number are human experiences. Including these channels ensures that validation is not narrowly data-driven, but holistically evidence-driven. They strengthen interpretation, preventing blind spots and enriching understanding of real impact. Time horizon planning ensures that validation windows align with how outcomes manifest. Some benefits appear immediately, such as reduced error rates after a bug fix. Others, like improved retention, may take months to confirm. Premature evaluation risks declaring failure before benefits emerge, while waiting too long delays learning. For example, early adoption spikes may fade quickly, requiring longer observation to distinguish novelty from durable change. Validation plans must therefore set explicit horizons for measurement, matched to the dynamics of the outcome. By aligning timing to expected effect latency, organizations avoid misinterpretation and ensure fairness. This discipline ensures that results are judged neither too early nor too late, reinforcing accuracy and trust in conclusions. Practical versus statistical significance is another safeguard in validation. A result may be statistically significant, yet operationally trivial, or practically meaningful but not statistically robust due to sample size. For example, a 1% improvement in click-through might be significant in a dataset of millions but too small to matter in business terms. Conversely, a major improvement among a small but critical cohort may lack statistical certainty but still demand attention. By distinguishing between these two dimensions, organizations prevent misplaced confidence or neglect. Validation must balance rigor with pragmatism, ensuring that decisions respond to real-world usefulness as well as mathematical certainty. This balance strengthens both credibility and actionability. Data quality and completeness checks protect validation from distortion. Sampling bias, missing events, or silent changes in definitions can undermine conclusions. For example, if telemetry fails to capture mobile users consistently, results may exaggerate desktop success. By running quality checks, such as verifying completeness, consistency, and plausibility stewards, ensure that evidence is trustworthy. Data quality is not assumed, it is maintained through checks and governance. Without this discipline, even the most careful analysis can mislead. Results validation depends on data integrity, making quality assurance an inseparable part of the process. Ethical measurement standards ensure that validation maintains user trust. Privacy, consent, and minimal necessary collection are non-negotiable. For example, analyzing satisfaction should not involve intrusive tracking beyond what is required. Ethical standards align validation with duty of care expectations, ensuring that learning does not come at the cost of trust. These safeguards also maintain compliance with legal frameworks, reducing risk exposure. Ethical validation demonstrates respect for users and reinforces that value includes responsibility. It shows that organizations not only measure what they achieve, but also how they achieve it, embedding fairness and transparency into learning practices. Goodhart's law guardrails protect against metric gaming. When a measure becomes a target, people may optimize for the number rather than the outcome. For example, if support teams are rewarded for closing tickets quickly, they may resolve superficially rather than solving root problems. Guardrails prevent such distortions by designing multi-metric systems, monitoring for anomalies, and reinforcing cultural norms that value authenticity. By embedding safeguards, results validation ensures that metrics remain true reflections of improvement rather than manipulated statistics. This discipline keeps validation honest and actionable, preventing incentives from eroding trust. Anti-pattern awareness highlights pitfalls that weaken validation. Output dashboards masquerading as outcomes create false confidence, as they count activity without impact. Averages that hide tail pain obscure the struggles of minority groups, distorting conclusions. Celebratory claims without counterfactuals ignore attribution, making success appear larger than it is. These anti-patterns reduce credibility and encourage complacency. By naming and avoiding them, organizations strengthen their validation discipline. They ensure that results remain grounded in evidence, not performance theater. This vigilance preserves the value of validation as a mechanism for honest learning and decision-making. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Review cadence establishes the rhythm that ensures validation findings influence decisions instead of languishing in forgotten reports. When evidence is reviewed irregularly, its value decays and teams risk either overreacting to noise or ignoring meaningful trends. By scheduling regular forums, such as bi-weekly or monthly reviews, validation becomes a predictable input to backlog refinement, scope changes, or confirmatory experiments. These sessions focus not on data display but on decisions, whether to pivot, persevere, or expand based on results. For example, if adoption is below threshold after 1 month, a review forum may agree to run an additional experiment before scaling. This cadence reinforces accountability by tying results directly to next steps. It also builds stakeholder trust, since they can rely on a consistent mechanism for surfacing evidence and shaping action. Distribution-aware dashboards make validation accessible without oversimplifying reality. Averages can be dangerously misleading, hiding tail pain where the most critical risks often reside. Dashboards should therefore display percentiles, ranges, and variation, paired with plain language narratives that interpret what the numbers mean. For example, reporting that 85% of users complete transactions in under 3 seconds, but the slowest 5% experience delays over 10 seconds, provides far richer insight than a flat average of 2 seconds. Narratives also acknowledge uncertainty, context, and potential external influences, helping stakeholders interpret signals responsibly. This pairing of quantitative rigor with human-readable explanation ensures that results guide informed decisions rather than superficial conclusions. Distribution-aware dashboards keep evidence honest, usable, and directly tied to operational and business outcomes. Survey practice standards provide the rigor needed to make customer feedback credible. Poorly designed surveys can generate misleading results, either by sampling the wrong groups, asking biased questions, or collecting responses at unrepresentative times. Standards address these risks by defining sampling methods, wording guidelines, and timing protocols. For example, a customer satisfaction survey delivered immediately after a resolved support ticket captures relevant experience, while one sent weeks later may gather hazy or biased impressions. Standardization also improves comparability, enabling results to be tracked consistently across cycles. Without standards, surveys become vanity tools rather than reliable evidence. By embedding methodological discipline, organizations ensure that satisfaction metrics reflect real user sentiment rather than artifacts of flawed collection. This rigor strengthens validation and makes feedback a trustworthy guide for decisions. Support and operations signals connect validation to the realities of day-to-day experience. Metrics such as ticket volume, issue categories, first contact resolution rates, and on-call load provide practical evidence of how increments affect supportability and reliability. For example, a feature may boost adoption but also trigger a surge in support tickets, revealing hidden costs. Conversely, a well-designed increment may reduce operational burden by eliminating recurring issues. By including these signals, validation ensures that results are holistic, not narrowly focused on user-facing outcomes alone. They also tie customer experience to the health of internal teams, showing whether benefits scale sustainably. This integration creates a more complete picture of value, aligning increments with both external satisfaction and internal resilience. Benefit realization tracking ensures that validation continues beyond immediate post-release windows. Early signals can be misleading, either exaggerating novelty effects or hiding long-term gains. By explicitly linking increments to financial or risk outcomes over time, organizations avoid premature victory declarations or unwarranted pessimism. For example, a subscription feature may show little impact in the first month but significantly improve retention after 6 months. Tracking over appropriate horizons distinguishes temporary spikes from durable benefits. Benefit realization also provides feedback into strategic planning, highlighting which types of increments generate the strongest returns. This long view makes validation more than a checkpoint. It becomes a learning loop that informs where to invest next. Triangulation strengthens confidence in validation by combining multiple evidence sources. Telemetry may show adoption, but without voice of the customer input, motivations remain unclear. Support data may reveal recurring issues, but without operational metrics, their cost is unknown. By integrating telemetry, qualitative feedback, and operational signals, teams reduce blind spots inherent in any single source. For example, adoption data, NPS results, and ticket themes together provide a richer understanding of whether a new feature truly improves satisfaction. Triangulation acknowledges complexity, ensuring that conclusions rest on converging evidence rather than narrow metrics. It also builds credibility with stakeholders, who can see that validation is multidimensional. This practice transforms validation from a single-lens snapshot into a comprehensive diagnostic tool. Escalation triggers and stop-loss rules protect organizations from persisting in weak or harmful increments. These rules define the thresholds where results require action rollback, pivot, or added safeguards. For instance, if defect rates rise above a set level or adoption remains below 10% after 2 cycles, escalation is automatic. Stop-loss rules prevent optimism or sunk cost bias from consuming capacity on underperforming work. They also protect users by ensuring that flawed increments are withdrawn promptly. By predefining thresholds, decisions become principled and timely rather than reactive debates. Escalation criteria make validation actionable, tying evidence directly to risk management. This discipline ensures that learning leads to meaningful course correction rather than polite acknowledgement. Communication of results is the bridge between evidence and trust. Validation findings must be shared transparently, including what changed, the strength of evidence, implications for stakeholders, and next steps. For example, an update might report, "Checkout abandonment dropped by 12%, based on robust data across all cohorts." Next steps, expand feature regionally and monitor retention impacts. Transparency requires acknowledging uncertainty, such as when evidence is partial or confounded by external factors. By communicating results openly, teams preserve credibility even when outcomes are mixed. Stakeholders trust organizations that share both wins and shortfalls honestly. Communication makes validation visible, reinforcing that results are not hidden in analytics tools, but actively shape alignment and strategy. Knowledge capture turns validation insights into reusable guidance for future cycles. Each round of results generates patterns and pitfalls that, if recorded, can raise the quality of design and interpretation. For example, teams may learn that task completion rates were a stronger indicator of value than self-reported satisfaction, or that a particular survey question consistently biased responses. Capturing these lessons prevents repetition of mistakes and accelerates maturity across teams. Knowledge capture transforms validation from episodic measurement into institutional learning. By codifying insights, organizations ensure that each increment not only delivers outcomes, but also improves the practice of validation itself. This practice compounds value by making evidence a cultural asset. Sustainability checks verify that benefits endure without hidden costs. An increment may appear successful at first, but impose disproportionate burdens in support, reliability, or ethics. For example, adoption may surge, but if on-call load doubles or fairness concerns arise, the benefit is unsustainable. Validation must therefore examine whether outcomes persist without degrading other dimensions of value. Sustainability checks ask whether the organization can maintain the improvement responsibly over time. They ensure that results are durable, not brittle wins that collapse under pressure. This dimension of validation aligns impact with long-term resilience, ensuring that increments strengthen rather than weaken the system as a whole. Vendor and partner validation recognizes that outcomes often depend on external contributors. Shared measures and joint reviews confirm whether partner systems performed as required and whether interfaces held up under load. For example, if a payment gateway supports a new feature, both the vendor and the organization must validate adoption, error rates, and compliance jointly. Coordinated validation prevents gaps where each party assumes the other is responsible. It also strengthens accountability across boundaries, ensuring that external dependencies do not undermine value. Vendor and partner validation integrates ecosystem realities into outcomes, making success a shared responsibility. Risk and compliance validation ensures that increments reduce exposure and meet obligations with observable evidence. This means confirming that incidents declined, vulnerabilities were closed, or regulatory requirements were fulfilled. For example, releasing a new encryption system should be validated by audit evidence and incident data showing reduced risk. Compliance validation integrates legal and ethical obligations into results, rather than treating them as separate tracks. By demonstrating that obligations were met, organizations protect themselves from penalties and strengthen trust with regulators and customers alike. Risk and compliance validation acknowledges that safety and legality are core outcomes, not secondary benefits. The learning-to-action loop ensures that validation does not end with reporting, but feeds directly into planning. Findings update backlog items, refine acceptance criteria, and adjust success measures. For example, if validation shows adoption lagged because onboarding was unclear, new backlog items are added to improve guidance. This loop keeps plans tethered to reality, ensuring that future increments respond to evidence rather than assumptions. Learning becomes embedded in the workflow, turning validation into a living driver of strategy. By routing insights into action, organizations ensure that each cycle of delivery improves both outcomes and methods. Success confirmation is the culminating step of validation, verifying that increments produced observable improvements in satisfaction, risk posture, or business impact, with confidence proportional to the evidence. For example, confirmation may report that retention increased by 5%, support tickets dropped by 20%, and compliance standards were met. These results, backed by evidence, prove that the increment advanced its intended goals. Success confirmation closes the validation loop, demonstrating not just activity, but durable impact. It also provides credibility for stakeholders, showing that investments paid off with tangible outcomes. This final step reinforces the culture of evidence, ensuring that increments are judged by what they achieve, not by what they promised. Results validation synthesizes into a framework where increments are tested against customer satisfaction, behavioral outcomes, reliability, business impact, and risk reduction. Review cadences and dashboards keep evidence visible, while triangulation and attribution protect rigor. Escalation rules and communication practices ensure that signals trigger decisions transparently. Knowledge capture and sustainability checks embed learning, while partner, compliance, and action loops extend accountability. The synthesis emphasizes that shipped work proves its worth only when validated by outcomes that persist, are ethical, and align with strategic goals. Validation ensures that every increment stands accountable to evidence, turning delivery into a cycle of proof and adaptation rather than assumption and hope. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.